6-week fetus cannot survive outside the uterus. It just can't. There's no technology that will allow for the fetus to survive until the point of viability. If you think about Catholic teachings in the past, before abortion became a political hot potato, Catholic teachings were that viability began with quickening. That the soul, the fetus had a soul when there was quickening. Quickening is when you feel fetal movement. Fetal movement is not felt by the mother till about 18 to 20 weeks. So this idea that, a fetus is a person, a fetus cannot survive outside the mother. It cannot survive without the mother there. So the idea that, we're just trying to save the fetus, because it is not a person, it is not a baby until it is outside the uterus. And that is clearly science and obstetrics. I'm not making that up.
Today, we are joined by Dr. Anita Somani, the freshman state representative for Ohio's 11th House District, which serves Dublin and Hilliard. For more than 30 years, Dr. Somani has worked as an OBGYN at OhioHealth. She's a board member for Lead Ohio, the Columbus Medical Association, and Planned Parenthood. Her firm belief in protecting the reproductive rights of women has caused her to propose a controversial new bill, one that has been dubbed Conception Begins at Erection. Stay tuned and find out why Dr. Somani believes it's important to call out the gender double standard on reproductive health. First off, just explain to the audience about your bill and why it's important.
The Conception Begins at Erection bill is all about pointing out the absurdity of the reproductive rights bills that have passed over the years here in Ohio, that fortunately we got rid of them with the constitutional amendment to protect reproductive rights. So, for the last 20 years, probably, we've been seeing increasingly restrictive abortion bills, things like the heartbeat bill, which is obviously misnamed, other bills that penalize physicians, penalize healthcare providers for providing abortions. We just had one recently that was overturned by a judge where abortion providers had to bury or dispose of fetal remains. So there's been so many different bills over the years that now, when you point out that a pregnancy happens because there are two people involved, not just the female who's getting pregnant independent of the male, people are just, appalled. They're like, how can you do this? How can you restrict men's rights? And it's like, wait, you've been doing this for so many years, putting up barriers for women to achieve reproductive care, that it's time to, equalize those things.
Okay. And so in the bill, it would make someone a felon, correct?
Well, yes, there's tiers of felonies. First offense, second offense, and third offense, starting, at I believe 1,000 and going up to 10,000. But we don't have the language completely, clearly written out yet. So we have just modeled it after the Mississippi bill.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the Mississippi bill. Is this something you're hoping that other states will copy, like Mississippi and Ohio, and like all 50 states will have one? Or is this more of, some critics have said this is just satirical, something you're doing, like it's a stunt? What is your goal with this? Because this is a pretty unique, very bold bill to pass.
The goal is to have conversations about the absurdity of some of the bills that we are seeing go through the different state legislators, as well as now at the federal level. We here in Ohio, we have a bill that's called the Save Higher Education Act, or the Higher Education Act. And essentially what it will do will be to destroy universities and colleges' ability to teach critical thinking. It's trying to get rid of, and unfortunately, I don't know how, but diversity and inclusion have become sort of negative words when we should be proud of diversity and inclusion. So that's in that bill. There's some other things that take away union rights, so people who belong to unions, those rights would be curtailed. So a Higher Education Act should not be doing any of those things. A Higher Education Act should be supporting critical thinking, should be supporting independent thinking, should be supporting professors, teachers that work with students. and should allow for our students to get through college, to get a degree, and be able to think in this world, to be able to understand, global problems, understand how to critically solve them. And this bill does none of that. So I think I was trying to make 2 points. I was trying to make the point with this legislation. And yes, would it be wonderful to have it across all 50 states? Sure. But the point is not to legislate reproductive rights for men or for women. The point is to call attention to the absurdity of restricting and legislating anybody's reproductive rights. That's big government getting between the healthcare provider and the patient, regardless of whether the patient is male or female, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
What has been the response in the Ohio State House from like Republicans and Democrats? Because you're in there. What are they saying to you about this bill? Or are some Republicans saying like, oh, I think this is kind of funny. I kind of agree with you on the down low. Or
Yes,
are Democrats shying away from you because it's controversial? What?
both, all of the above. All of the above has been happening. There have been people on the down low who have said, oh my gosh, this is a great bill. You have such a great sense of humor. There are people who have said, oh, I don't know, I don't think I can attach my name to that. My constituents will be offended. Um, it is crazy how much it has gone viral, both on the right and the left. On the right, I'm being called a radical feminist, all the usual, negative words. It's a bad thing to be a radical feminist in some worlds, and there have been people who have questioned my credentials, my expertise as a, OBGYN. Then on the other side, there are so many people who have been like, oh my gosh, we need this bill, this is great. So yeah, and I mean, honestly, we put it out on social media, on TikTok and Instagram and all those. And at first I was looking at comments, and now I've just given up because, all of the comments initially were friends and people I know, colleagues, and we're all very positive. And now I kind of question, are they even real people? Are they bots? Who knows anymore in today's world, like who's commenting on your bills?
I did want to touch on the fact you brought up you're an OBGYN. You still practice even though you're a
Yeah.
legislator. What is something, because great bills, great legislation is made by people. I think they're experts. They really know what they're talking about. They're not just somebody who got elected and goes and writes something down. So you work every day with
Mhm.
patients. What is something maybe that the press or special interest groups miss about the abortion issue that you wish people understood at a more nuanced
Yeah.
level?
So I think the thing that most people miss, but really came to the forefront after Roe v. Wade was overturned, was how harmful this is to women's health. We have all now heard the stories of women dying because they couldn't get abortions because of sepsis, getting infections that kind of overwhelm the body systems. So sepsis can, cause your kidneys to fail, cause your heart to fail, cause your liver to shut down. So things like that, the harm to women when they can't get the care that they need, or when they have to travel, from state to state. I mean, there are states like Texas and Florida where people have to travel across 2 and 3 states to even think about getting an abortion. And medication abortion you can do in the privacy of your own home, but that has some risks. And even though it's very, very safe, it's safer than pregnancy, it's safer than a surgical abortion. Sometimes people do end up having bleeding issues and they show up at the emergency room and they're bleeding. And those stories have been reported too, where women are bleeding to death, and the doctors are having to consult the legal, experts to say, can we take care of this patient? Can we do a D&C on her? And I just think that the economic cost to women, to families, when you're being forced to have kids that don't fit into your plan for your family or for your life, if you have to quit work, if you have to be on bed rest, if you cannot afford a third or a fourth child, then you are doing society a disservice by restricting women's reproductive rights.
And I wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because tomorrow I'm going to be speaking with Austin Beigel from End Abortion, Ohio. And they're going to propose a bill to abolish abortion. They say they're getting ready to get one proposed. And when I was reading up about this, a quote from an article. He said that the pro-life movement has never tried to regulate women's bodies. We're trying to regulate the actions of people who want to kill another person. I was hoping you would give your response to that, and also the bill they're going to propose about abolition of abortion, like the dangers of it. And what do you say when people say we really just care about the baby, not trying to
So
regulate someone?
that is just fancy linguistics, right? That's not reality. A 6-week fetus cannot survive outside the uterus. It just can't. There's no technology that will allow for the fetus to survive until the point of viability. If you think about Catholic teachings in the past, before abortion became a political hot potato, Catholic teachings were that viability began with quickening. That the soul, the fetus had a soul when there was quickening. Quickening is when you feel fetal movement. Fetal movement is not felt by the mother till about 18 to 20 weeks. So this idea that a fetus is a person, a fetus cannot survive outside the mother. It cannot survive without the mother there. So the the idea that, oh, we're just trying to save the fetus, because it is not a person, it is not a baby until it is outside the uterus. And that is clearly science and obstetrics. I'm not making that up. When people talk about these abortions at 40 weeks or abortions at 38 weeks, those don't happen either. What we do is we allow for comfort care. We deliver, at that point it's a baby. We've delivered the fetus, it's outside the mother's uterus. And those babies that have life-threatening anomalies, those babies who have a heart defect, or kidneys that are missing, or lungs that haven't developed, there are defects. Another one, for example, is anencephaly, where the brain doesn't have like the skull covering it. Those defects are incompatible with life. But if you are living in a state where you cannot have an abortion, because so many of those are detected in the second trimester, then the mother is forced to carry the pregnancy to term, with all the risks of needing a C-section, of having a postpartum hemorrhage, or bleeding after delivery, just to deliver the fetus and have some time before that baby dies. So those are not abortions. And it's just so frustrating to see the emotional language that has been used on the right to stigmatize women, to stigmatize what is truly medical care. It's part of the spectrum of medical care that we offer.
Okay. I just wanted to take a little bit of a macro view here of abortion. Back in the 90s, it was kind of the Democratic mantra around abortion was safe, legal, and rare. But things have changed, ebbed and flowed. It's been a few decades since then. If you were the one making abortion policy, let's say for the whole country, would you allow abortion then all the way up to like until the baby was born? Would you draw the line somewhere in between those 9 months? What is your expert opinion on any restrictions, if
So
any?
Courtney, again, I think you misunderstood. We don't perform abortions in the third trimester. What we perform are um, inducing labor, so that the fetus can deliver, so that the family has time. Those are less than 1%. It's 0.1% of abortions are and fall into that category. If I was gonna go back in a time machine, and first of all, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, we should have never done it as a Supreme Court decision. At the time when abortion had not been politicized in the 70s, it should have been a congressional law. It could have been made a federal law rather than the way it's been handled, because Roe v. Wade just was slowly chipped away at until it was overturned, until the Supreme Court had enough judges to overturn that. So I would make it federal policy, number one. Here in Ohio, in terms of the constitutional amendment, we left the decisions of, when to have an abortion to those that are made between the physician and the patient. And we don't have a gestational age for viability. Because in my 30 plus years of practice, the gestational age of viability has gone down. We used to think that a fetus between 22 and 24 weeks was pre-viable. With modern technologies, some, and not 100%, some of those babies will survive. But the question is, will they survive with cerebral palsy or with hearing defects or with visual defects? You don't know. You don't know at the 22, 24-week mark when you're helping with resuscitation, when you're giving the medications that help the lungs. You don't know what the end outcome is going to be. So, the age of viability changes based on technology and what we learn as physicians. So I don't think that you should ever put a number, because back in the 70s, they may have considered viability to be 32 weeks, that before 32 weeks, it was almost, impossible to see a fetus survive.
It's kind of all I had about the bill and abortion. I did just want to ask you, what inspired you to run for office? Because I've always wanted to run for office. I think there's other women out there that want to. Was it reproductive rights? From your work as an OBGYN, did you go, I got to get involved?
Yeah, I, as a OBGYN, I've always been involved in the advocacy space through medical associations. So I served as president of Columbus Medical Association, which is our local city organization. I've been involved with our state medical organization. So I was doing a lot of advocacy work for other reasons, but then the more it was impacting our practice with some of the laws that were being proposed, some of the laws that were proposed multiple times before they passed, inspired me to finally say, you know what, I need to speak out more. So I was speaking out more at the State House. And then, how you can have that perfect storm where the stars align, everything aligns. We had redistricting. So this was a new district that was going to be created because in Ohio, certain areas are growing in population, certain areas aren't. So a new district was being created. The Dobbs decision had been leaked. And I knew the leader of the Democratic Party. My friend, who was a physician, was already in the State House. So I was asked if I'd be interested in running. And like every woman, I said, no, I'm not qualified. No, I don't have the time. No, I don't have the skill set. And I would tell anybody who's thinking about running, especially as a woman, we are too hard on ourselves. We have the skill sets. We just don't know we do. We all are good at multitasking. If you're a mom, if you are juggling a job and kids and a spouse, you're and a partner, you know how to do the work to run for office. And if you're not ready to run for a statewide office, we've seen so many of the those like Moms for Liberty groups running people at school board, the school board level. And that's where so much of what happens in our local schools gets determined. So I would say, if you're passionate about education, run for school board. If you're passionate about making your community a better place, run for city council. I mean, there's no shortage of offices that a woman can run for. And it's disappointing that we couldn't, jump that hurdle to elect a female president when other countries have done that. But I have hope that it will happen in my lifetime.
Yeah, I don't know. We got some weird times we're living in now, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This is great. You answered everything I wanted, gave some great information. If someone's listening to this and they go, I really like this rep, I want to follow what she's doing, where would be the best place online for them to keep in touch with you and up to date?
You can follow me. I'm on everything, it seems like. You can follow me on Instagram at Anita SMD, and I believe that's my TikTok handle too. I just changed it, and I was trying to kind of align it. And then I have a Facebook site, Anita Somani, MD, only because I had a personal Facebook for years before I went into politics and was trying to keep the personal, but it's harder to do. And then my website is Dr. Somani, the number 4, Ohio.com.
If you want the other side of the debate, check out my interview with Nicholas Callis from End Abortion Now. Now that you know where we've been, find out where we're going. Tune in to Ladies Love Politics, where you can stay informed without going insane.